Welcome to Manic Mic'd Up, and today we're going to talk about a bunch of different categories of things, not just insights or random sticky note insights or stream of consciousness or something I wrote down, but I also want to paint an illustration with words of my situation and energy fluxes, as well as some things I noticed in daily life. And today it's raining out and I have the window wide open just to get some air in here. I feel like I need air, but I usually close the window when I talk. So if you hear a car go by and the rain in their tires, that's why. So I'm guessing if you don't want to hear the meta commentary and situation stuff, if you skip ahead about halfway through, I'll probably be talking about insights. And some of the insights are continuations of what we're going into regarding the forces in the space and in the lines of the letters themselves. I've been seeing a bit more around that. So as I've been sharing, I've been in Aperture consciousness, or an open state of consciousness, for about a week. That means I write down a lot of insights, and as I mentioned, I spent 2 consecutive days where I just sat and wrote for several hours at a time. I haven't even looked at that yet, so we are going to go into that, maybe today, maybe another time. But the main thing I'm attempting to do this time is talk about what's most alive in the moment. So last night, I didn't sleep that well, according to my Oura ring. So I wear an Oura ring, and it's quite helpful for tracking energy fluctuations. So it gives a readiness score each day based on sleep and some other things. But it's saying that my heart rate is elevated while I'm sleeping. Last night it was an average of 55 beats per minute, and normally I'm probably around 49 to 51. So it shows that I could be tired today. And of course, I can just feel myself. I'm tired. It was hard to wake up. My head felt foggy. I do feel more awake now, but it's taken probably 6 hours to feel awake. So despite my body and my head feeling tired and groggy, I still felt like I want to work. I want to keep working on stuff. So it's not like I'm tired and I'm in nothingness and the portal is closed, the openness is closed. But I still have to make adjustments in order to accommodate for the fatigue of my body. And I'm also sharing this to point out the differences of how it might have been in the past, before I had gone through re-uncovery and done all of these adaptations to the meaning, right? So through the process of re-uncovery, I'm engaging with the information and the meaning and the experiences I have when I have heightened energy or heightened states of consciousness, so-called mania, so-called psychosis. And that's one thing, right? And I sense that exploration has led me to this place where now I'm seeing a bit more deeply this time. I have this expanded consciousness and perception that sees subtleties. So that's one line, right? Like I could probably watch a YouTube video. I have a few lined up that I want to watch, or read a bit of a book and have a bunch more insights right now, like no problem. But then the other thing is that my body is tired. So what I'm saying is that the forward movement of building meaning, learning, creating projects, turning the projects into, an eventual nonprofit, that's still there. That capacity, that wish is still there, but my body's tired. And how this is a difference is in the past, my body would still have energy, but then the meaning that once the meaning kind of got to the end of maybe what I could process, then it would change into something scary like psychosis. So it'd be the scary psychosis, that would be the thing that would stop me from continuing. But, my body could just keep running around or doing whatever until the psychosis maybe stops me in my tracks because I'm scared. And that's what I would do in the past. I haven't had psychosis. I think I had one maybe 5 years ago when I was hospitalized. And then before that, it was 2016. But before that, it was like 3 times within 14 months. But what I would always do is freeze. Freeze because I could just run. I could probably run for miles because I was so scared. But I just froze, and waited for help. So what I'm saying is now my body is freezing, not because it can just keep running. It actually can't go any further. So the meaning has outgrown my body's capacity to carry out what the meaning is saying. And again, that's not a problem. It's just learning, right? Now imagine I could snap my fingers and meet 5 other people like myself who have done as much work in the meaning sphere as I have. Now all of a sudden, if I'm tired then, and the 5 of them aren't, they can do the project. So there can be like a handoff. So running out of energy isn't a problem. It's like working in isolation starts to become the problem. So even if, say, for example, I'm like, okay, I just want to create a solo business tomorrow. But the business was structured in such a way that I need to have energy all the time. I can't just not have energy for 2 weeks. That's hard to do, right? Because of the way my energy fluctuates. Maybe I'll figure that out at some point. And I do sometimes run out of the meaning energy. And that happened a few weeks ago, where for 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, I had no insights, but I still had energy to do regular things, so my body wasn't tired. And then it happened for 2 weeks that my body was kind of tired, and I had no insights, so I did lay around a bit. And then all of a sudden I had energy and the insights, and my body's moving around, and I have the insights. And now I'm in another phase where it's my body's tired. I need to have a good sleep tonight or the next night. But I can still sit here and have insights, right? So it's almost like 4 different combinations. And then, of course, there's the happening that happened for me last year, which, I was in a depression for 3 months for the first time in 5 years. And that one was, pretty non-functional. And I know why and everything. And I learned a lot, and that's fine. It's fine because I know it's temporary. So what I'm seeing from just sharing this is that there's almost a way to check in with like body energy versus memetic energy, or not only versus, but sometimes they go together, right? So an initial strong mania would be a lot of body energy, a lot of memetic energy, wanting to share, running around, sharing. And then just as I learned to freeze in psychosis, I learned to freeze in mania, where if I had that energy coming in, I kept it to myself, like a sacred space, and harvested the meaning of the insights that are coming through, just like I'm doing now, right? I've been having lots of insights for at least a week, and I could have just gone around and told everyone in town, strangers, but that doesn't work. For example, yes, I do these solo dialogues, and I have for years, since 2016. And last night was the first time I've ever sent a friend a voice text message with 2 different insights that were sort of at the frontiers of what my consciousness was looking into. And one of them was about these language forces. I can't remember what the other one was about, but those ones are fresh, they're new. So what I'm saying is after 10 years, and I was diagnosed in 2011, so I definitely did go about and talk to random strangers in 2011. And then when it sort of came back, I had a friend with me, so I was saying things to him, I think, for those 3 times, which was probably helpful, because if I would have just been saying them to everyone. And he did help me get through a crisis one time, but I did end up in the hospital anyway. So since 2016, I haven't said anything really to any friends. Not completely true, because I was definitely in a mania in 2019, and telling some people because of where I was at. It's a beautiful place. So I guess for at least the last 5 years or so, I've kept them to myself. So it's technically been 5 years. But even then, this is different because this is like a deep exploration insight, not just something that pops into my mind and I sort of share with somebody who's there and I'm in a heightened state. So it was still the first time I've ever done that. And why I'm sharing that is because that's how, I guess, seriously I take this information. It's not something to be played with. And that is what gets us into trouble. It's sort of like charging one's battery for years and years and years before connecting up to any other circuit or giving that energy to any other circuit. I've talked about re-uncovery as sort of training oneself in private, not because it's a secret, but because it's an Olympic task. So if you imagine how many hours, and I'm not saying this is equivalent to Olympic athletes per se, but just this illustration where imagine how many hours Olympic athletes train in their sport, the cross training, the conditioning, the mental side of things, the diet, and they do all that to win on the world stage. And they do it for themselves, right? Like this changes their body and their being into the Olympic athlete. They're the Olympic athlete, but they're on the world stage. They're there for the world to see. If there was nobody to watch, then what would be the point? Now imagine if every time an Olympic swimmer got in the pool, it was full of kids, or it was public swim time, or, they had to teach their kid to swim at the same time. Or their friends were always like, let's go drinking. And they're like, sure, why not? What I'm trying to point out is that this is kind of serious in the same way. I thought of another illustration to go with this. So Olympic athletes, they do a lot of training in private or in certain situations or what have you to train for their time and their event. Because people don't need to see all those intermediate steps. And that's what gets them there. And even though they're training not fully in private, they're able to say to their friends, like, I'm an Olympic swimmer, or they have a coach, or their family knows, right? Now, our situation is not like that, because imagine if an Olympic swimmer went to meet up with their coach, and the coach said, you haven't been in that pool again, have you? You don't have any insight into that you shouldn't be in the water that long. That's the situation we're in. So that is one of the reasons why we do this part of our training in private. And I'm not saying don't use all the other tools available, because I do, but this part can still be trained. A person can have a medical condition and still go for a run, depending on what it is, right? So we can still build the meaning and create our meaning body. Years ago, I met Master Dion Vimal, and I was talking about him because I'm reading that book of his. But why I'm bringing him up now is when I met him, at the time I had some kind of weird chronic fatigue syndrome, long before I ever was diagnosed with a mental illness. This was probably about 20 years ago. And he said, rest with your legs up, like your knees elevated or your legs onto something. And I remember last year I ran out of energy too, and so I was trying to set up a rest station in my place, place where I could go with my feet up and even be on my phone or something with my arms sort of elevated. I was prototyping a way to recharge my battery. I was trying to figure that out because I knew I was running out of bodily energy. And so this morning when I felt tired, I went and I grabbed some cushions to put on my bed to rest like that. And I can kind of feel my heartbeat a bit when I'm tired like this, and it was already elevated a bit through the night. And so I laid down with my legs up like that, and all of a sudden I started to feel this energy of bliss. I was not expecting that. I could even lay down right now and see if it came back, but I'm sitting up because I'm having a smoothie. But I laid there like that for maybe 10 minutes. But it's possible in certain situations when it's meant I could get into that position and be recharged in bliss. I haven't felt bliss like that in a long time. A few days ago, I was laying down and using this neck pillow thing, and I felt quite relaxed. And I was feeling like, wow, I haven't felt relaxed like this in a long time. And then laying down today, I haven't felt bliss like that in a long time. I don't feel bad or anything, but I feel a lot of energy directed towards working on the projects, or if I don't have the capacity to do it, it's sort of waiting for the energy to come back so I can work on the projects. But that was bliss. And I was like, oh, this is why you said that 20 years ago. But it only seems to be working now. So the point of resting with my legs up is it's easier on my heart, so the heart could calm down. But the other part of this is that had I not created that rest station prototype last year, I may have not been as quick to set it up this year. And that's what I find a lot of times is, even if it seems like I'm getting ahead of myself in an iteration of the energy wave, whatever it was that I created in that last bigger energy wave is carried forward to the next one. So then when I need something, I find myself just like, oh, I have it right here. I have it right here. I can't remember if I talked about these synchronicities, but I don't think so. They're kind of small ones, but when they happen a lot, they feel small. They feel small anyway, but again, I've been seeing a lot of 11:11. That's one thing. And then I went with a friend for a walk around a lake, and my friend was talking about how hard she's been working, like this part of her business and then adding that part of her business after. And maybe she doesn't have to work that hard. And then we kept walking, and there were two beavers, and one was right on the shore, and I've never seen them there before on the shore like that. Maybe once. And so one beaver was gathering some sticks, and then she's like, let's look up the meaning of seeing a beaver. And it said, hard work. And then we were talking about a certain aspect of her business, like going this way with one thing or that way with another, and one way was more aligned. And I was saying likely the more aligned way, but maybe less lucrative, will end up being more lucrative because it's more aligned. And then when she checked her phone, she had 2 notification requests for that aligned part of her business. And then I was sharing something about something to my friend. I don't share personal stuff about anyone here. And there was someone else in the hot tub, and we were talking for a while, and then that person in the hot tub was like, well, actually I do this for a living, and I know this person that can help you. I was thinking, wow, that's interesting that we're talking about this part now when this person is in the hot tub that can help. And then the other thing that happened was that I think yesterday or the day before, I was having this feeling like something is listening. And I don't mean in a like scary kind of way, like surveillance, and not listening to me. I had this sense. And I think what it relates to is, if I have a synchronicity and personal synchronicities, it's like, oh, synchronicity. But then if that's happening from a friend and then other people are saying that, it feels like there's some kind of listening happening rather than, say, personal synchronicity. And so when I got back last night after going to the hot tub, I was listening to a song on Spotify, and I generally just listen to my playlists, and I don't have that feature on that will add in random songs related to the same genre. And after the song had played, all of a sudden the next song that came up was, I can't remember the title, or if this was the title, and I don't know which was the title and what was the album. But it was by the artist Lights, the Canadian artist Lights. And she's a resonant synchronous being for me, and I'll tell you why in a second. But the song or the album title was called The Listening. So I don't even know how that got turned on. I think maybe a drop of water fell on my phone and pressed the icon for turning on that feature. And then the next song was The Listening, or the next album title, by the very artist who is super synchronous for me. Because one time when I was in depression, might have been in 2019, I was sitting at Starbucks, and I don't usually sit there, but I was sitting there and I kept sitting there, and I was thinking to myself, why am I still sitting here? And then all of a sudden I felt this energy, and it's like the energy where, like, if you hear a sound and you kind of like pop your head up to look around, but there was no sound. What I think it is almost like this sound of this meaning, or this energy, like we can feel it sometimes. It's not a sound. And I turned around and it was Lights. And I'm not a starstruck type of person. I don't follow celebrities or anything like that. But for me, the very first time I was in the hospital in 2011, and I would get to go home on passes, I would just sit there and watch her video for the song Toes on repeat a lot of the time. So to meet her in that moment, when I was again struggling, when she helped me when I was struggling, I just walked up to her and kind of told her that. And that's why, sometimes in those really, really hard moments, there's these little miracles. Like, I was so down, but then there was a light. There was Lights in the doorway standing there. And she told me, I told her I was struggling, and she told me it gets better. And she was right. And I knew that too, somewhere. I couldn't feel it at the moment. It gets better. The other time I felt the energy like that, like what's happening, and looking around, it was like, what's happening? Something's happening. I went outside and ended up taking a picture of a cloud formation that looks like a genie, or maybe Gaia. Just ran outside to look, and that's what was there. It feels almost like an earthquake that doesn't shake. And another time that I was in a really hard place, I went outside and I was just walking around in the grass, and there was a huge 4-leaf clover standing out much taller than the rest of the grass. And at that moment, it felt like everything was dark and down and heavy, except this 4-leaf clover. One other time, I was in a hard place. I was actually in the hospital. Someone brought me a kombucha and just sort of listened to me, and I was saying how much I was struggling. I was actually ready to give up that day and just not get out of bed at all. But I got out of bed because I had a visitor. And then after they left, all of a sudden I felt like I could continue. Whereas before I didn't think that. I couldn't feel it. But maybe that is a key, right? Sometimes it just takes a little spark to show someone that they can keep going. And they do the keeping and they do the going. but it's just that little spark. Whether it's your favorite artist or a four-leaf clover from nature, or your favorite drink brought by someone you've known for 5 years with a listening ear. I guess these types of gestures can be anything, but I suppose maybe in those challenging times when the salience network has really collapsed into a very small size, it may pick up on something meaningful. It still has to be meaningful for that certain person. Like if my friend brought me a hamburger, that's not meaningful for me because at present I'm vegetarian. I'll share one more little story about the progression of the learning of, I guess, what I would call epigesturetics, which is how what is around us influences us. It might actually be the opposite of feng shui. Like if my place was set up in a feng shui way, it wouldn't suit me. And I don't know feng shui, but I just have a sense of it. So another thing I was doing to set up for the day was to just work from being in bed with my legs up. Usually I sit at my computer. I don't lay in bed and watch TV. I never use my phone in bed. I just don't. And I like to get up right away when I wake up. That's me. So this needing to lay down to be able to do anything takes a bit of intentional setup. So I filled up my water bottle. I put my little mini speaker beside me in case I want to listen to music. I brought those cushions to elevate my legs. I put my notebooks in my bed. I was drinking coffee earlier. I thought maybe I would start talking earlier. I brought a little table in from the living room to put things on. Now, I'm going to share a story about years and years ago. I was falling asleep. Actually, I'll go back a bit further. The first time I was in psychosis, the day before I was hospitalized after 2 months of mania and psychosis, didn't know what was going on. I felt like I might jump off the balcony, but I grabbed a pair of handcuffs that I purchased for $1.80 in dimes when I was 8 years old at a garage sale down the lane. And so as soon as I felt this urge to run, this fear, like I was talking about earlier, I didn't know how to freeze. I wasn't sure I would stay there. So I ran across the room and grabbed the handcuffs and handcuffed myself to the bottom rail of the balcony and just laid there. Had all these crazy experiences. I won't go into that, but those handcuffs got cut off the balcony because I was taken by paramedics after that. But so I actually went and bought another pair of handcuffs thinking, if this happens again, at least I know how to keep myself safe. So a few years later, I had an experience where all of a sudden my heart started pounding and I jumped out of bed and I thought I might harm myself. It was this experience where part of me feels like I'm going to harm myself and part of me feels like that's terrible, and watching that experience or that feeling in absolute horror and trying to sort of lean with invisible forces into not doing that. So I knew where my handcuffs were and I had a plan of where I was going to handcuff myself, where I couldn't harm myself, like reach anything that would be harmful. And that was the bathroom sink had like a pipe, And then I was like, okay, I got to get my phone, right? Because I wanted to be able to calm down a bit before reaching out for help. That was sort of my plan, or see if I could just calm down eventually. So I went to grab my phone. And so I grabbed my phone, put it there. And then I was like, well, actually, I want a blanket to sit on. So I grabbed a blanket, put it on. Then I was like, actually, well, maybe I want a book to read. So, grab a book. Actually, wait, maybe I want this, And then I was like, wait a minute. I don't need to handcuff myself. I feel okay. Now, it might seem like this doesn't relate, but it's kind of the exact same thing I'm doing now. Like, look, I need to be still. I need to rest. I need to stop. I need to, put this cushion on the bed. I need to have my phone. I need to have this microphone. I need to put my laptop in the bed, put the notebooks in the bed. But I'm actually 10 steps ahead of being in any kind of psychosis. But it's the same realization that, as we were talking about earlier, there's this energy of insight without moving. There's an energy of insight with moving around. There's an energy of not having insights, but being completely functional, moving around. And there's an energy of not having any insights and being non-functional, not really moving around, right? So sometimes there's a time to rest even though there's insights. And that seems opposite to what I just said, because I was trying to freeze before when having a psychosis. But the psychosis is there because I haven't built enough meaning, in a sense. So something scary happens and I don't understand it. But if I've built enough understanding and meaning, I can understand anything. And at a certain point, nothing is scary because it's all understandable. Now, I'm not saying I'm to the end of that completely. I did share that, I had a bit of a scary thought the other day, and I was like, as if, you just kind of be like, as if, or even those thoughts that are a little bit grandiose. It's kind of like, as if. It takes a while to get to that place where you can just be like, as if, like that's so not interesting. And it's probably partly because the insights are interesting, right? So when you see something that's like so not interesting, it's relatively speaking to the insights. In earlier stages, it'd be like, I'm so great, that's very interesting. I want everyone to know that. So yeah, I can't really hook in. Again, I don't say never though. If something else came up, it would be something to learn from. That's the thing that is underneath all of this, is learning. Like even last year I screwed this up. My heart was going nutso, and I did call the ambulance, and they took me to the hospital to check my heart. But it was fine, so they sent me home. Like they didn't send me to the psych ward. Even though I was having some psych symptoms, I didn't really talk about those. I was just kind of worried about my heart. And it was nice that they took me seriously, right? Because sometimes what happens is if a person has a diagnosis and they say, I'm having a problem with my heart, but I have this diagnosis and I take these meds, they'll be like, well, we're going to take you to the psych ward. And a lot of people end up in not good situations because of that. So, that's what I'm seeing now, that was a test that at least they listened, right? They listened. I didn't need the psych ward. I did feel like I needed some kind of medical attention, but it wasn't the psych ward. But they could have made that decision for me, and they didn't. So last year, what I'm saying is I didn't figure out how to rest, and I still don't know. So today might be the beginning of that. Because I don't want to lay here and watch YouTube all day. One reason being that it'll just generate too many insights, and I want to talk about the insights that I've had that are alive. So I think we'll start going into that now. And again, this is me partly documenting this because 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, I recorded videos of a whole wave of mania. And that one was me like wandering around, creating little innovations and sticky notes everywhere, and I'd go out and buy stuff. I was still working sometimes. So it was a different flavor. It was still contained in here, but it was more about moving things around and reorganizing and prototypes, if you will. And then this time is different. So I'm trying to, rather than wandering around on videos, because that's not the energy of this, is use my voice to paint a picture of the scenario this time. And there's no point in doing videos if it's just being in this room, right? So the medium of voice suits well to the current situation. Okay, a couple more points about my biorhythm here. I'm laying down now. I finished my smoothie. Now I forget one of them, but we'll see if it comes back to me. One thing I did last year, this was it. I think I went to the hospital just a few days from now, a year ago. So it's like a year, almost exactly, where I have this fatigue where the energy is just gone and I need to stop and lay down. And then last year it was the thing with my heart going on, but this year it's not so far. The other thing is last year when the energy came, it was stronger because of the situation I created for myself, which I won't talk about here, but I was trying to change the design of the space. Like I bought a new TV, not a huge one or anything, but just the one I had was just little 32-inch because I don't really watch TV that much. But I bought, I think, a 42 or whatever. And so I had to have someone come and mount it. And then I put the other TV in the bedroom, and I was imagining myself learning live blood cell analysis. And when I went to my practitioner, they had a TV where you could see all your little blood cells bouncing around on. So I was thinking like that. But then now I'm kind of glad that it's there, because if it happens where I have to learn how to rest like this more, like I can watch some TV, that's for sure. I generally tend to watch videos on my phone though, and it's probably better to watch it on the TV. So again, something that I did when I was in a heightened state of energy, it pays off if I'm in the right alignment. If it's just in chaos and in madness, then maybe not. And this is something I was saying to my friend, is that since the energy, I was saying that I do like the word mania because it's like energy. And it originally, as far as I know, was associated with divine mania of the ancient Greeks. And then at some point it turned into like a negative or sort of a bad term. But then now we use madness, and I don't really like that word myself. Maybe I'll change my mind one day. But then I was thinking about how like each iteration of mania, if we understand and have a process for that energy, can be like the growing of a seed into a flower. Like it's the seed, and the seed opens, and then, the roots grow, or maybe more roots grow, and then the stem starts to grow, and, from there and there and there. But if it's just madness, then it's like chaos that maybe some people manage to turn into art. And there's some mad people who do art, you know what I mean? But I really think that this energy can direct many different kinds of roles and development, but those have not been carved out. And that's what I hope a nonprofit will do. It's about having a structure for people to flower into who they are, and all that uniqueness that is lost because the structures of society are for education for certain types of roles and tasks that not everybody is designed for. I'm going to see if I can check the Oura ring stuff, see how I'm doing.